Every motion picture that is filmed must have a story or a script, but here's the kind of script we use in making cartoons. It's called a storyboard. It looks like a comic strip in your Sunday paper. The idea for this cartoon came from a newspaper. It's a true story about woodpeckers wrecking telephone poles and causing much damage. And here is Homer Brightman to give you our version of the same story.
The idea of this story is built around a problem in the telephone company. We start with a title, To Catch a Woodpecker. Then we fade in on the front door of the telephone building. It's a very elaborate marble building. We cut into a closer shot of a brass plate which reads the Miracle Telephone Company. If you get your call, it's a miracle. Then we show the building itself, which is shaped like a telephone. And then we dissolve into the office of the president through the front door, and he is sitting at a very elaborate desk. The phone rings, ring, ring, ring. And he answers the phone. He says, hello. When you hear burp, burp, and then rah, rah, and he makes a big take, and he slams the receiver down. He says, it's that crazy woodpecker again. He turns around, and he jumps away from the desk and goes, phew. And you cut down to the floor, and we see he's a very pompous little man. He walks over to a map of the city on the wall, and on the map there's a light that's blinking. It's going da 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 da, and we cut into a closer shot, and it builds up. The woodpecker's voice is getting louder, and he reacts. He says, "That's O'Houlihan's territory." He whirls around, and he grabs the intercom and jams his head right through with a crash. He says, "Send O'Houlihan up here!" And this guy skids right into a stop, and he comes to attention. He says, "O'Houlihan, reporting, sir." O'Houlihan, that woodpecker's drilling holes in our telephone poles again. He's costing us thousands of dollars. Now, you either get rid of him, or I'll get rid of you! Oh, Julie goes, "Ah!" And he goes, the digging running out. We dissolve to a very sad, dismal scene of telephone poles hacked to pieces. We come into a closer shot of one of these poles, and the little pieces that have been hacked off go bloop, 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 bloop down out of the scene. We cut to another telephone pole, and we see Woody's on it, and he's drilling. When this hand comes in and taps him on the tail feathers, he turns around, and we cut back and see that it's O'Houlihan, and he has him by the neck. He says, "Sure, I'm getting rid of you, woodpecker, me boy." And he drops him in a sack and ties a knot in the sack and goes, scram. Then he dusts off his hands and slides right down the old telephone pole. And Woody's waiting at the bottom with a pin in his hand, and he goes into the pin and he goes, "Whoa!" Right up and crack. His old head hits the top of that bar. Then we dissolve again. And he doesn't give up. He's a determined character. He comes in with a rope and a lasso in it and goes, he throws up at the top of the telephone pole, and it goes right over Woody. And Woody just takes it off, puts it over the top of the telephone pole, and you hear, this thing's grinding, and it's being pulled down off scene, squeak. And you cut down the troubleshooter's wagon, you see old Houlihan standing there with his old hand on his hip, and he's winding us in on a winch. And Woody's coming down and down and down into the scene, closer and closer, and finally comes right into O'Houlihan.
Thank you, Homer. That's just part of the story, but it will give you an idea of how a storyboard is used in making cartoons. There's still a lot of work to be done by directors, artists, musicians, and cameramen. And I'll show you what they do on some of our other shows.